Hey guys, coming at you today with a cake compilation video because cake is one of those things that is everywhere all year round, birthdays, different celebrations, and one of the keys to sticking to a keto lifestyle is to be prepared. So I have compiled a bunch of different cake recipes and we're gonna watch them. I'm gonna do a little introduction in the beginning and a little what I've learned afterwards and get right on to the next video. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef. I've been a chef most of my life and I'm here to bring you all the tips and tricks on the best keto recipes possible. So if you enjoy these types of recipes, if you love baking, make sure you hit the subscribe button down there, give the video a thumbs up, leave me comments, and share with all your friends and family. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new recipes every Saturday, or a compilation video. Okay, so keto cakes. Now, I have a lot of cakes on my channel. I have about 19 videos. I tried to pick out kind of different ones to showcase here. I don't know about you, but with having in-laws, I have a birthday just about every month. So it's basically one thing after another. There's my birthday, mother-in-law's birthday, Valentine's Day, sister-in-law's birthday, our anniversary, my mom's birthday, Mother's Day, and so on and so forth throughout the entire year. But luckily, most of my family eats keto, low carb, or gluten-free. I'm pretty much always the person that supplies the cake for the party, and everyone enjoys my keto baked goods. But if you don't want to take a whole keto cake to a party, the nice thing about my recipes is almost all of them freeze well. So you can make all these recipes into cupcakes and freeze them in individuals. You can even probably cut them in half if you wanted. But one of the biggest things with keto is just always being prepared. So I always bring snacks if we're just having a dinner at my family's house and I know I'm gonna want something, a little something sweet afterwards, or I know they're gonna have cookies or whatever for Christmas. Like I didn't make Christmas desserts really. I brought something. So that is the biggest thing, so you're not tempted by all the stuff there. I always usually bring a side dish too. That way I know I can have something. So I'm gonna do this in chronological order. So we're starting with one of my very old videos from July 2020. It was only my 15th upload and I was trying to capture the redoing like the tasty videos that were going all over the place and make it keto. We also have like a Thai restaurant here that does a version of this and my husband ate it and loved it, so it's something he asked for his birthday. We're gonna be watching my keto crepe cake video. This has only 4,300 views, but it's one recipe that I make over for my husband. He actually asked for it for his birthday in October, so I made it again. So let's watch the keto crepe cake video. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new, my name's Alycia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And today we're gonna be making some keto coconut flour crepes. But not just keto crepes, we're gonna be transforming them into a keto crepe cake. So let's get started. So if any of you have been scrolling through Facebook and seeing this tasty video in your feed and have been wishing, I wish there was a keto version of this, well, you're in luck today because I created one and I made one with some hazelnut, cacao, pilly nut butter. The perfect keto nut made into a butter. It's so delicious, and I made it into a filling for our crepe cake. First step, of course, is to make crepes. And that's really the hard part. The rest of it is a breeze compared to making crepes. But I will show you a step-by-step tutorial on how to exactly cook them on the flat top. That'll hopefully make it easy for you. It even took a couple tries for me. I had a couple that I had to, toss, but the majority of them came out. And this was the recipe that was the easiest. I had a couple other ones that made it a little bit more difficult. I added some more stabilizers into this one. I've used this once before in my peanut butter patties. I'll link that above. I used egg white protein powder. And I feel like it just gives it a lot of stabilization to this recipe, and that's what makes them not fall apart when you flip them. Of course, you got to make sure you cook them long enough on one side. Otherwise, they will fall apart, which was my downfall. I'm too eager to flip and they break. So I got coconut flour in here, the egg white protein, some sugar and some salt, and a little bit of xanthan gum. And then for the base, it's just cashew milk, water, and 2 eggs. And this is super easy. You just throw it all into a blender. And then I do have a little bit of vanilla extract and a little bit of stevia drops. I wanted it a little bit sweeter. You can make these completely customizable. You can make them as sweet as you want. You can even make savory crepes and fill them with like a cream chicken filling for a dinner recipe. If you use this as a base and either add sugar, salt, you can add herbs, you can add anything you want to this to make it the flavor you want. And then you can fill it with whatever you want. I do want to mix these dry ingredients a little bit. I did add everything in at once in one of the recipes that I did. And when I went to wash my blender, I noticed there was slimy stuff, you know, on the edges. And that's because my xanthan gum was just put right in 1, half teaspoon. And as it blended, it got caught on the sides. It is always really important to mix your xanthan gum into all your dry ingredients. If you don't have a blender, you can probably get away with a food processor, but I might suggest breaking this recipe in half because there is a lot of liquid. There's 2 cups, and a lot of food processors, if you put too much liquid in, it, flies out of your food processor, and you don't want that happening. I got the wet and the dry minus some melted butter, which I'm gonna pour in after we blend this up for a minute. Might need to plug this in. And of course my cord's not long enough. I just give it a few initial pulses to get the ingredients kind of incorporated a little bit. And then I go in with a spatula and scrape down the sides to get any of the dry that has stuck. And give it another few blends. And then I got this little spout on mine. You probably have one in the middle or on the side also. So as I'm blending, I'm gonna pour in my 4 tablespoons of melted, unsalted butter. So I added salt into the dry mixture. If you have salted, don't add the salt. Give it a couple pulses. Give it another scrape down. Make sure you get all that stuff incorporated. Give it one more pulse and we should be good to go. Okay, and then we're gonna be heading over to the stove. This is the mix. It is pretty thick. You wanna let this settle for a good 20 minutes or so before you start trying to cook your crepes. Now this batter right here will probably give you around 12 to 15 crepes, depending on if any of them mess up on you. A crepe cake usually has 15 crepes in it. And I have all the macros and the recipe down below for just this whole batch of crepes and the filling. So if you do mess any up, you can probably minus some from those macros because you're not having it all in there. If you cut the crepe cake into 8 slices, it's just over 2 grams of net carbs per slice. So it's not bad, and it's really a light dessert that you can make for friends and family and they wouldn't know it's keto. I actually made a crepe cake that was gluten-free and the entire family loved it. This one is low carb and gluten-free. Now this took me a lot of trial and error on heat. Your stovetop is very different from stove to stove. I literally have mine just below the 3. That is where I found the perfect temperature to cook my crepes. They'll cook 2 minutes on one side, flip them, 30 seconds. It's gonna take a little bit of practice with your stove. I'd say start there, and if you need to adjust the heat a little bit. So I have a stick of really soft unsalted butter, so that's what I'm using to grease. You can probably use just a avocado oil spray. I just don't want a ton of oil in there. So once it's hot enough, which one of the indications I do is I put a little bit of batter and touch it, and if I hear it sizzle, it's ready to go. I have my whole station here set up that you can see. I'm gonna need somewhere to put my measuring cup after I scoop. Everyone's gonna have exactly a 1/4 cup. I have a spatula in here for when I get down to the bottom. And I have a thin spatula to flip my crepes, but using your hands is probably the best way to do it. So I'm gonna start here. I think my pan is hot enough. I'm gonna grab a 1/4 cup of the batter. I'm gonna lift my pan, pour, and swirl. You wanna try to get all these the same size, and you gotta kind of push the batter down a little bit and get them into the corners there. You can take a little bit of extra batter, put it in the little spots that don't make it round. Very hard to do on camera. It's not the prettiest one I did. They come out, sometimes they're really smooth, sometimes they're not. But I'm literally gonna watch my clock, and it should take about 2 minutes on this side. All the bubbles should be popped. You even can wait for like a tiny bit of browning around the edges. I also take, if you have any really thick parts, like right here, I'll take and smooth those out a little bit because they'll just take longer to cook. You want to try to have an even batter. It is definitely not easy, but practice makes perfect on these.
A few minutes later.
See, it's starting to come up from the sides a little bit. It's getting a little brown over here. Okay, it's been 2 minutes. I'm gonna try flipping. I just pull it up with my hands. So we had a little bit of rippage, but that is patchable because you're gonna be putting this into a cake anyways. And literally 30 seconds on this side. You want just a tiny bit of browning. That's a little bit more than I usually have. Might pop this down a tiny bit more. Like I said, if you're not making a crepe cake, you can just make 4 of these for a breakfast, and you can just fill them with any kind of, sugar-free jam you have, cream cheese, Danish kind of filling on it. You can keep your batter for up to 2 days uncooked in your refrigerator. These crepes can last over a week in your refrigerator, just stacked on top of each other in a Ziploc, or you can freeze them for a month. Always have a plate ready to put your crepes down on. So between every one, I take a tiny bit of butter, which I still have some on here. I'm gonna do a little greasy on there and do the process over again. 1/4 cup of batter, down and around. Try to keep it flowing. It's the hardest part. If your pan's too hot, it won't flow all the way around. If it's too cold, it won't spread out fast enough. But that one was a pretty good round one. We just missed a little bit of the edge there, but not too bad. Another 2 minutes, flip, 30 seconds. There we go, no rippage on that one. These are good just by themselves. I'll insert a clip of my boyfriend just eating them right off the plate. Now this is a non-stick 8-inch skillet. So you don't want to put this metal down on there too much either. You don't want to scrape it. There you go, crepe number 2. You want to make sure you dry them flat, and then you can stack them up. Another little bit of grease. Another 1/4 cup. Shake it out, shake it out. Ow. You want to try to get them all the size of the pan. That way you'll just have a prettier cake. But if you're not making a cake out of it, the edges really don't matter at all, because you can just literally fold it into thirds with your filling inside. The funny thing about this batter is, like I said, I made the gluten-free crepe cake, and I used an all-purpose gluten-free flour blend, and it was much more difficult to make those crepes. So that was one of my biggest goals with this batter, is to make it so it's not falling apart on you. And that's what the xanthan gum and the egg white protein does. Don't touch your wrist to the pan. You may burn yourself. Okay, last crepe going, and then we're gonna get on to the filling while these cool, and we're gonna assemble our crepe cake. So like I said, I'm making a hazelnut cacao pilly nut butter crepe cake. And for those of you who are not familiar with pilly nuts, it is actually described as one of the best nuts for keto, because there's 21 grams of fat in an ounce and less than a carb in an ounce. So that's why it is so great for keto. And I bought a bunch of these products. They're called Pilly Hunters. I go straight to their website It is a little pricey, but I did really want to try it because I thought it sounded delicious. I also have a turmeric butter that they made, and they also have one that is a pumpkin spice, which I haven't tried, but I gave some to a friend and she loved it. These are the nuts here. They come in all different flavors, and then they have all the different nut butters. And this one, you see, is the hazelnut raw cacao pilly nut butter. And this is definitely my favorite. It is a little higher in carbs, but it's about the same as just like a regular peanut butter, and delicious, and a lot less than if you wanted to eat Nutella, which is what this is kind of, mimicking. So that's the kind of filling we were making. But literally, you can make any kind of filling you want. You can use raspberries, you can use strawberries. I usually do like a whipped cream cheese base. You can flavor that however you'd like. I just decided, because I love chocolate and hazelnut and pilly nuts, and I wanted to make something with this butter because I do love it. So that is what I'm making today. I got a cup of heavy whipping cream in here. Is anyone else confused by whipping cream? Because I usually get the Great Value, which is Walmart brand, heavy whipping cream. And I put that in my carb manager. There's 1 carb for 2 tablespoons. So that's what I thought all heavy whipping cream was. But then I go and I bought Wegmans, and I look at the carbs and it says 0 on here. So I'm like, oh, well, but if I put in a cup of cream into my carb manager, sure, there will be carbs in it. And I put it in and it said 0 carbs. I'm going by what that says, and that's what's down in the macros below. But if you guys know the truth, let me know in the comments below what you think about this heavy whipping cream situation. Because I don't know. I'm told that all heavy cream has carbs in it, but my carb manager says no. So I don't know who to believe. I got my heavy whipping cream in here. You want to make sure that's always chilled before you whip it, because otherwise you'll have a hard time whipping it. And then I'm going to sift in, I have a tablespoon of raw cacao powder just to make it a little bit more chocolatey, and some Locanto powdered sugar sweetener. My Thrive box finally came in. I'm going to sift that just because the powdered sugar is really clumpy, and so is the cacao actually. And I always weigh out my ingredients, especially the powdered stuff, because I took 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar. It was nowhere near how many grams it was supposed to be. Okay, we're going to whip that up until soft peaks, and then we're going to add in our softened cream cheese and pilly nut butter. Mine has been out for a couple hours, but it's still kind of cold, so I did pop it in the microwave 50% power for 15 seconds, and it's nice and soft now. You just want that because if it's too cold, the cream cheese will leave little clumps in your mixture. Okay, we are at soft peaks, as you can see. We're gonna add in our cream cheese and pilly nut butter. Okay, we're pretty stiff. I'm gonna give 1 scrape down and 1 more whip, and then we should be good to assemble our crepe cake. I made sure all my crepes are nice and cool. I actually stored these in the refrigerator in between 2 paper towels and just stacked them on top of each other. You can keep them in there for a week, like I said earlier, and you can literally fill these with different things every day if you want. If you make these savory, these would be a great thing to have, tuna salad in, or chicken salad, stuff like that. Or you can, I want to make these savory and try to make some quesadillas out of them. That'd be good. I'm missing quesadillas and grilled cheese for sure, among all the sweet desserts I'm missing. To start here, I have a nice dish. Whatever dish you want this on, make sure it's the one you want to end on, because you are not moving this after you assemble it. Tiny bit of filling down on the plate. I picked out my favorite crepe that I'm going to be putting on top, my best looking one, because you're definitely going to see the edges of that one for sure. You can also top it, however. I might do a little sprinkle of cocoa powder on top of this guy. Make sure that's nice and flat. You want to make sure it's centered. Now I figured out about 1 ounce of filling per layer will give you enough filling for each layer. Now for your first couple, you might want to weigh out 1 ounce so you kind of know what it looks like. You're going for a really thin layer here because you're going to be stacking up these really thin pancakes. You don't want to end up having it slipping between layers. If you have too much filling, it'll slip. You want to just go out to the outer edge, and then you want to make sure it's all the way even out to the edge because you don't want it domed in the middle. It's probably going to happen either way, a tiny bit, just because you're prone to putting more in the center of things. We're just going to keep building like that. And our final crepe. This layer you can do a little bit thicker, obviously, because you're on top now. I did about 14 crepes here. Like I said, the macros below are for just one batch of crepe batter and one batch of filling. So if you don't use all of it, or if you mess up a couple crepes, change the macros. Which I don't think I'm going to need all this filling, so I can minus a little bit. Or you can just serve that on the side if somebody wants extra filling. Now, normally I'm a perfectionist when it comes to cakes, but I've seen some videos where they, trim the sides. I like it looking kind of rustic. You can tell they're crepes, and it looks really nice. The lacy edges of the crepes, that's kind of what you're looking for. I think I'm going to dust it with a tiny bit of cocoa powder. There you have it. Now, if any of your friends say they want a crepe cake for their birthday and you're keto, I think if you show up with this, they will be very pleased. And only a couple of carbs for 1/8 of this. Time to slice into this and give it a try. It'll probably slice a lot better once it's chilled also, because that cream cheese will set up. Moment of truth. See that? Beautiful layers of cream and crepe. Now it's time to taste this guy. First bite of my crepe cake. You got all the layers. So pretty. It's not a super sweet dessert, so this is perfect for those people in your life that for some reason hate really sugary stuff. I don't get it. I could have a chocolate cake and eat a whole slice and be good. This is like a super light, not super sweet dessert, and it's not heavy and dense like a regular cake. The reason I made this the first time was because my boyfriend is one of those people, and he requested a crepe cake for his birthday. And his mother's gluten-free, so I made it gluten-free for them. Chocolate hazelnut's definitely delicious. So I hope you guys tackle this at home. I know it's a big feat to undertake, but if you keep practicing, you will get the hang of making crepes, and they are so versatile. It's one of those foods that you can have for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, and dessert. So I hope you guys try this and enjoy it. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe down there. It'll help me out a lot. And I will hopefully see you next time. Bye, guys. Okay, so that was an old video. I wasn't very confident in front of the camera yet, as you can see. And it is one recipe that I kind of want to revisit. I did make an updated video, so I will link that up there, but I still want to revisit and see if I can tweak it still and make other things out of it. Because I feel like that's one recipe that I can probably add some more stuff to and make like a tortilla and like all that other stuff. I will probably be revisiting that video at some point in the future. But the only thing that I've really learned since then on keto ingredients was the xanthan gum has been stronger than it was in the past. So you may need less xanthan gum than what I have in the recipe. And also, I didn't even have a blog post back then. This was before I created my blogs, but there is one for my newest crepe video. So I can link that down below for you. I went on a spiel about heavy cream, and basically all heavy cream has carbs, and I usually count 7 carbs per cup. That's just my standard go-to now. Some may have more than others, especially if they have more like added ingredients and stuff to them. But I have since figured that out, and I don't use Carb Manager anymore because Carb Manager, people can put things in themselves and it's very prevalent. So when people put things in at 1 tablespoon is 0 carbs, it just automatically calculates it as 0 no matter what you put in. So now I pay for Recipal, which actually prints out like an actual nutrition label. So that may be a little bit more accurate than Carb Manager. I'm really surprised that pili nuts isn't something that really caught on that big in the keto community. I think I first heard about it with Thomas DeLauer, maybe. I don't really remember. But I was getting it for a while, but they are really expensive. So maybe that is the reason why they didn't get too popular. But they are a good nut for keto. They're just very buttery and like soft almost. I do have a chocolate hazelnut spread recipe that I made from scratch that I used to make Ferrero Rochers. So I can put that down in the description box if you want to go check that out to make this crepe cake recipe. And the last thing is making stabilized whipped cream with the cream cheese. That's basically what I was doing by adding cream cheese to the filling. I think most crepe cakes are just whipped cream inside, but I have a whole video on stabilized whipped cream and different ways you can do it, so I'll link that down below also. Now, next up would be my vanilla cake, chocolate cake, and carrot cake, but I've actually since come up with better, fluffier, lower carb versions of those, so that will be later in the video. So actually up next is a flourless chocolate cake, which is great to have in the freezer. You can slice it up and freeze it, and it's great to just pull out and even just throw in the microwave with a little bit of whipped cream on top. Are also delicious for Valentine's Day. So this was published on December 30th, 2021, and it has 7,900 views. So let's get into our keto flourless chocolate cake video. Hey guys, coming at you today with a deliciously decadent keto dessert recipe, a keto flourless chocolate cake, perfect for that fancy New Year's Eve party. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a sous chef with a sweet tooth. And here we make delicious baked goods, many from my time as a pastry chef. And my goal is to make the best keto desserts possible. So if you guys enjoy these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button, the bell icon, giving me a thumbs up, sharing with all your keto friends. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday. Today, a super easy and decadent dessert that we have on our menu at the club all the time. Because it is naturally gluten-free, I just swapped out some of the ingredients so that it is sugar-free also. It's 3 ingredients: chocolate, butter, and eggs, and that's it. And it makes a super dense, fudgy cake. People think you slaved all day in the kitchen making it, and it's really not that hard. So let's get started on this recipe. There's a few tips and tricks I want to show you. That way it makes it even easier for you to make this dessert. So we're gonna start, you can do this in the microwave, but I'm gonna do it over a double boiler because we need boiling water anyways to put the cake in a water bath. So I'm gonna turn this on just to get it simmering, which I didn't get it ready, of course. I don't even know how much gas I have left in here, but you only want this at a simmer so that we don't burn our chocolate and butter. So you can do this part while you're whipping 8 eggs, but because I can't talk while that's going, I'm gonna get everything kind of ready and then get my eggs whipping. So it starts with 2 sticks of butter. I made this at work with unsalted butter. It does taste delicious, and there is no salt added to the recipe. I found this recipe online and I used it at work, I think over the summer, to make a flourless chocolate cake for the menu. I just chose one of the first recipes that I found when I Google searched, and it turned out really well. So I'm like, oh, I gotta keep this and try and make it keto. And I made a keto version at work last week and it turned out awesome. So I decided to show you guys the recipe. The recipe I found, it was 1 pound of chocolate, half a pound of butter, and 8 eggs. It didn't give me cup measurements on the chocolate chips. You really should weigh everything. I have this scale linked below. It's only like $15, and I think I changed the batteries once in a year and a half, and it's still going strong. So I highly recommend just picking up a kitchen scale because it makes things so much easier and accurate. I'm gonna measure this for you because I don't know what a pound of Lily's chocolate chips weighs, or I don't know how much it is in cups. I know how much it weighs, obviously, a pound. But this is completely up to you because chocolate is a personal thing to many people. I've been seeing comments of people making their own keto chocolate, and you can obviously use that in this recipe. If you like just 90% dark chocolate, baker's chocolate has 0 sweetener altogether, so I wouldn't recommend that just because it would be really bitter. But you could use that in combination with another chocolate, because today I'm using half semi-sweet, half dark chocolate from Lily's. You can use any chocolates you want for this. Any brand too would work. So I'm gonna measure this in cups for you. A whole package of Lily's is 9 ounces, so you're gonna need all but an ounce basically. So you could technically just count out 60 chips, and that would be an ounce serving, and you use the rest of the bag. So that's another way to do it if you don't have a scale. So we got our 2 sticks of butter in there. See, like, how do you measure 1 cup of chocolate chips? Because I could keep going, but is that a 1 cup? I don't know. Okay, 1 cup, 6.6 ounces. So let's try another 1/3 of a cup. That would make sense. 8.6. So a little less than 1/3 of a cup. Here we go, 8 ounces. That's why it's so hard to measure. Try it again. Oh, I don't have any 1/4 cup measures because they're all being used for something right now. Well, we'll try it. See, and another thing is these dark chocolate chips are different sizes. So really measuring with a measuring cup is just not very accurate. So 1 cup, 6.6 ounces, 6.4 ounces. So it's a little bit less than the other one. You never know. So we won't fill this up all the way. We'll do like a 1/4 cup, which is about there. Still short a little bit. So about 1 1/3 cups. So measuring with a measuring cup really is not accurate. I would suggest just counting out an ounce of chocolate chips out of your full bags if you have full bags of chocolate chips. So that's 1 pound of chocolate and 1/2 pound of butter. This is almost coming up to a simmer. We're gonna place this over a water bath. Just make sure you don't have the water hitting the bottom of your bowl. You don't want that. You just want the steam coming up and gently heating that. Keep a spatula close by to give it stirs every once in a while. Oh, and I almost forgot, we gotta preheat our oven to 325. The eggs do gotta whip for about 5 minutes or so. The recipe said from cold eggs, 5 minutes. I feel like it took me way longer at work though, so we'll try and time it for you so that you actually know how long it takes for these eggs. They're already starting to melt, so just keep stirring it. I'm gonna preheat my oven before I forget again. Okay, 325, good to go. Now, before I get my eggs going, I wanna show you one more thing. We gotta prepare our pan, because once this is all done, we're gonna just mix it all together and get it into our prepared pan. I borrowed this from work. It's an 8-inch springform pan. Springform pans can be kind of tricky. You want to make sure it's like flat on a surface. Try to get it to sit flat and put your spring in place. You want to make sure it is solid in there. I actually think I put it in the wrong way last time, because you can put it in this way too, but this way has like a big lip on it. I don't think you want that. You put it down and squeeze it into that. See, it's even hard to do for me. You want it to like kind of pop up into the pan. I never have directions for my springform pans. I just use them. But we're gonna line this with parchment paper. I'm gonna show you a little trick. So I have my pieces that are already like folded. So you take the folded edge, fold it over, fold it in half again, and then fold it at the corner into like a cone. Even I suck at this using this method. I can never get it to like fit right in the bottom of my pan, but it's closer than just trying to eyeball it. My water is to a simmer, so I'm just gonna turn it off and let it like slowly melt so we don't burn the chocolate. You kind of try and find the center of your pan, and then you go and cut around the outside. Don't laugh at me if this comes out really bad, because it almost always does for me. And you unfold it, and you put it in here. And see, it's too big. But I'd rather have it too big than too small, because, like I said, there's kind of a little lip in there. I'm going to spray the bottom and get this stuck in there really well. You want the sides all sprayed too. I just kind of spray and then wipe it around just to make sure it's all nice and even. Make sure you're just all flat in there. Get it creased around the edges if you have a little bit too much. Then one more thing we're gonna do to this is just because I don't trust that no water's gonna get in, I'm always extra measures taken for this kind of stuff. So I take a piece of foil and wrap it up around the pan just to be safe. Like that. And then you just gotta have some kind of pan to put it into, which this one is a little bit too small, but I wanted to make sure it works in this just because I know most people have a 9x13 pan. I do have a pan from an old job that I had that's like a little bit wider than this that would work, but I wanted to make sure that a 9x13 would work for you guys. I don't want you going out and buying a random big pan if you don't have to. You just want to make sure you have enough room to pour some hot water into the pan when we go to bake this. This doesn't really sit flat on here, but we're gonna see if it's gonna work okay. I gotta get my mixer up here so I can start beating some eggs. So just 8 cold eggs into your mixer. Oven's ready, and all our stuff should be ready 5 minutes. And where I'm not gonna mess up the amount of eggs this time. This one is a pretty straightforward recipe. It's one that's pretty much keto already, which is what was nice about it. I just wanted to make sure it did work, so I made it at work. There's 8. So I'm gonna put this on like medium high speed and whip it until it's like all the way up to like here in the bowl. And I'm just gonna keep stirring my chocolate, and once it's all melted, I'm gonna take it off the heat completely and let it cool a little bit before we mix it into the eggs. This is what it should look like. Huge and super thick and pale and fluffy. That's what you want. Get rid of this guy so I can have some room. Put some more water in my pot and I put it on to get it to a boil. You want boiling water to put into your pan. But if you don't do this method, just have a kettle going while you're getting all this stuff ready to go, and that could be your boiling water. So our chocolate is all nice and silky smooth. You're just gonna add all this in at once and fold it in until you just don't see any more egg streaks. Ooh. Foamy. We're gonna start there and then I'll get the rest in there. This bowl is pretty full. Chocolate and eggs. Looks so delicious already. When I made this cake over the summer, I'm like, wow, it's like a perfect keto cake. Eggs, butter, and chocolate. I'm using really good, high quality chocolate in there. Be delicious. Oh. I'm gonna turn this up a little bit just to get it to a boil when we gotta pour it in. I'm gonna do this on camera, but you should really do this at your stove. I do not have an oven cam though, so can't show you it over there. Don't look like we have any egg streaks left. So, get our pan over here, pour it in. Looks delicious. Hopefully once we get it all in there, it'll sit even, if we even it out enough. You can use a 9-inch springform. This is an 8-inch. It's just not gonna be as thick of a chocolate cake. You can also do a 10-inch, but I would maybe double it, but then the cook times would be a little bit different. Cook times for this, 22 to 25 minutes at 325, but I have actually not baked it in my home oven, so that's kind of going to be a test for me too in my home oven. I'm just going to keep checking on it. The recipe said it needed to be at 140 internal temperature, so that always helps. Make sure it's nice and spread out all the way to the edges. Oh, and my butane died. Aw. I'm going to put this over on my stovetop real quick to get it boiling. One of the biggest things on this, besides getting it even, is I would clean up your edges, because whatever edges are on there are going to get burnt. And when you go to try to release the cake from the pan, you'll get all those burnt bits on top of your cake. You want to get that all cleaned up before you even throw it into the oven. I think we did pretty good. There's only a couple little swipes of batter going around. There we go. Now into the pan, and I can hear my water's almost boiling, so hope this stays kind of even. I don't think it's gonna move, like, it's not such a loose batter that if it's uneven, it's gonna like bake like crooked, you know? I got chocolate all over me. My water is pretty much up to a boil already. That took like 2 seconds. So I'm gonna bring it over here and show you how to do this, but you should be doing it as you put it in the oven. You pour in your boiling water and then close the door, because you don't want to get any water in your cake. Carefully pour it. You want it halfway up the sides. Hopefully this is enough water. Okay, took my whole, this is my medium-sized pot of water, and it's about halfway up. It's a little bit low, but the important thing is you just have a water bath so that it steams and cooks gently. So we're gonna put this in the oven, and I'll meet you back here when I pull it out. Hopefully don't spill it or burn myself. Ah! I think I made it without getting any water into the cake. I set it for 11 minutes. I'm gonna turn it halfway through very carefully to make sure it doesn't splash up onto the cake. But I'll meet you back here when it comes out of the oven. Okay, I pulled it out. It was 24, 26, 28 minutes. The ovens at work are convection ovens, so I turned it down to 300 to make up the difference for a convection oven, usually minus 25 degrees, and it cooked in 22 minutes. All ovens are different, so make sure you just keep checking it. You want it set at the edges like that. You can see it's like bouncing back. You want it pretty set, but a little mushy in the middle. Like I said, 140 in the center. We're gonna cut this right down the middle, so just make sure you have the cuts right in the middle, or the poke holes. I temped it at 26 minutes and we were at 138, so we should be at 140 now. Don't do what I did at work the other day when I was temping it and dropped the thermometer in the cake. But once it's out, take it out of the water bath carefully. And you gotta let this cool at room temperature, and then you can throw it into the refrigerator. And unfortunately, we cannot try this or take it out of the pan or anything until it's completely cooled, because right now it's very soft. So we'll be back when we gotta get this out of the mold, which will be quite a while. Okay, it is time to unmold our flourless chocolate cake. It becomes like a thick fudge almost, like it is dense. But that's why you cut this into 16 pieces, because you do not need a big slice of this. I have a thing of hot water here. I have a towel of some kind. Go around the edge. This is where I did not have good luck at work. Getting it out of the pan. I hope I learned from my mistakes. Once it stops sliding easily, take it back out and rewarm it. When you get to where the clip is, that's like the hardest part. You got like that lip there. I think we're all the way around. Making sure I'm getting all the way down to the bottom though. That's where I noticed it was like sticking to the bottom, is if you had any that there wasn't parchment. Unspring it, should be good. Pretty clean. Now the directions said to invert onto a plate, but I could not get it off the bottom of the spring form when I did it at work. So let's see if I can get it off. Well, that came off. I ripped up the parchment a little bit. Make sure you have no paper in your stuff. Oops, looks good. I just gotta flip it back over now. Can I do it on here? Okay. To decorate this, I think I'm going to do some powdered sugar and a little bit of macerated raspberries on top. So I have some frozen strawberries that are thawed. I keep saying strawberries. They're raspberries. Oy vey. I'm just gonna add a little bit of powdered sweetener to that and put some on top. We got a tiny bit left in this bag. Just want to sweeten this up a little bit. Raspberries are pretty tart, and this cake is very dark chocolate. Like, it's not, there's no added sweetener to it. So putting a little bit of sweet tart on top is gonna cut through the richness and the bitterness of the chocolate that we used. You can use granular in here, but it just takes longer to melt than the powdered. This would be delicious with just some fresh berries on top. But because it's the middle of winter, your best bet is to go frozen unless you're in a place that it's berry season all year round, unlike Buffalo, New York, when we really have seasons of that, that's for sure. That's good. It's still tart, but you can have that sweetness too. Put that right over our hole that we made. I'm trying to be fancy. Here's our cake. I don't know if I like it, at least the look of it, but it is what it is. It'd be nicer if it was a pile of fresh mixed berries on top of our cake, but it is the middle of winter here, even though there's no snow. So 1/16 of this, without the raspberries and everything, is 1.3 grams of net carb. There is quite a bit of sugar alcohols in here. I actually figured out the macros on it with them because that's pretty much where the carbs are coming from, is just from the chocolate from Lily's. Per serving, it's 5 grams of sugar alcohols, and it's 10 grams of fiber and 16 grams total carbs, with some decimal points in there too. But I thought that it was gonna be a little bit too high for sugar alcohols, but I looked at a package that I just got in the mail from Keto Crate, and it had Keto and Company's brownies, and it was 1/16 of an 8x8 pan of brownies, and the macros were pretty similar actually. I don't feel too bad about this cake, but again, even a 16th might be too much. I'm gonna try and portion it and see if we can like figure what exactly 16th of it would be. It's harder with stuff on top of it. That's about a 16th right there. After you have hot water to cut this to, it is pretty thick and dense. So if you don't have a hot knife, you're gonna get a lot of crumbs. So I still got crumbs even though I used a hot knife. Gotta get a slice out here, and I need another plate. There we go. That is a decadent looking piece of cake. It's like fudge brownie. I need a fork. It's basically like a piece of fudge. That is so rich. I think it would be even better with some high quality like dark chocolate, because this really just highlights the chocolate. It is silky, smooth, melt in your mouth. It's like just a piece of fudge. Definitely really good with the raspberries. You need something to kind of cut the fat of all that butter and eggs and chocolate. It's super good though. This is like a chocoholic's dream. It's so good. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Try it out for yourself if you're one of those people that is a chocoholic and loves super rich, decadent desserts. This is the one for you. It is perfect for a decadent New Year's Eve evening with fancy dinner and a really fancy looking dessert, but super easy dessert. But it looks like you took all day making it. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you do, please let me know in the comments below. Tag me on Instagram at Keto Upgrade Chef. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. it got sunny out. It was cloudy all day. So that was the flourless chocolate cake. I have not made that in a really long time. I think I probably maybe made it at work a couple of times, but it does look really good and I haven't made it in a really long time. And a pretty simple recipe, but definitely one you can portion up and keep in the freezer. It was quite a jump from the first video to this video. I was actually at my goal weight here. I had actually reached it 2 months prior and we got engaged. So a lot happened in just a year for sure. Alternatively, if you didn't see my hot cocoa bomb video, I don't use Lily's chocolate much anymore now that Bake Believe is on the market and it is much cheaper of a chocolate. I would definitely suggest using that in this recipe. And I believe it might be even lower carb than Lily's was. And then I just want to mention the throwback where I said I'm going to use the right amount of eggs this time. That was from my mess up with the coffee cake. It must have been like the week prior to this. But where I fixed the recipe by minusing an egg and then I still added the egg in the video. I also want to mention shortly after that video, I spun off another recipe that is great for Valentine's Day, a chocolate lava cake. And that's one recipe that I think I'm probably going to revisit at some point. The video is kind of confusing, I think. I already watched it and when I was deciding like what videos I wanted to put in here, and I was in a time crunch to get that done, and I think that made it a little bit confusing when I shot the video. So I probably will redo that video at some point. But next is the video right after that. I made an angel food cake recipe. And this I figured out kind of while I was trying to work on the egg white bread, because people had been telling me over and over again to try out the egg white protein bread or the protein sparing modified fast bread. So I was working on that recipe, but I wanted to get out a cake. So I thought maybe I could do the angel food cake and figure out a recipe there. So this is a low carb, high protein angel food cake. And it has 18,000 views. And it was put out on January 8th, 1 week before I put out my protein sparing modified fast bread that is up to 270,000 views. So let's watch our low carb, high protein angel food cake. Hey guys, coming at you today with a delicious, soft, and fluffy keto angel food cake. You guys mentioned the protein sparing bread, so I got to experimenting and it turned out pretty delicious. So let's get started. Today, something I've been avoiding for a while, this protein sparing bread. I've seen it made into buns and all this other stuff, and it just never looked appealing. But then I found Indigo Neely. I hope I'm saying that right. I tried to watch a bunch of her videos to see if she said her name, but I appreciate her videos because she taught me a lot about this bread and things you could do with it. And I took some of her stuff. I'm working on bread, but I have not figured out an add-in that is any different than hers right now. But I did figure out a sweet version, and this still only has 2 grams of net carbs for 9 portions. So I think it's technically, I did some research on the protein sparing modified fast, and I didn't even get deep into it because I knew I wouldn't be able to do it, because working in a kitchen, I'm around stuff all day and I cannot be that strict with my diet, which is why I love keto, is because I can easily do it in my everyday life. So it's not a diet plan for me. If it is for you and you guys are doing it, this is a delicious treat, and I think it's okay to have on it because I use 1 tablespoon of coconut flour, and that's it for carbs. So I'm really excited to bring you this recipe because I think it turned out awesome, and I want to show you guys how to make it. I took a lot of direction from her, so I am gonna be putting her link down in the description box because I would not know half the stuff I know without watching her videos. But I do love, it was always a thing in the culinary world that you always put your wet ingredients in the bottom. And I never really thought about it because it's just something automatic that I do usually. But it is really good for this recipe to do that. Because this egg white powder is sticky when it gets wet, and it'll just all stick to the bottom of your bowl. So I kind of used measurements from an angel food cake recipe with regular egg whites, but I converted it to the powder and water mixture. And then I kind of kept their original like cream of tartar, and I cut down the salt a little bit, but then I added my ingredients. It's 118 grams or a half cup of water. I'm at about a half cup on my measuring cup, but I always weigh still just to make sure it's accurate. I just looked up this conversion online, so yeah, it was a couple grams short. That's why I do that. Oh, and now I'm too many. A gram is not very much, so it can be annoying to try and get the exact. I do a little splash at a time. Okay, 118. I gotta make sure I look at my recipe this whole time because I did a bunch of different tests and I want to make sure I get it right on this video, unlike my coffee cake video. So zero out the scale. This egg white protein powder, it was what she used in one of hers. She said she got bulk supplements because I did not know where to begin on buying a big bag of egg white protein. So I just buy the It's Just brand because I only use a couple tablespoons at a time usually. 24 grams or 3 tablespoons of this. This stuff is really hard to get an accurate measurement on too because it's so light and fluffy. So I always say you should weigh your ingredients. And this stuff goes everywhere. 24. Try not to hit it on anything or anything because it goes flying. Hey, look, my hands are all covered in egg white protein. Okay, so for their original recipe, it was way more egg white protein, and I believe their original was like a quarter cup of allulose for a whole batch. I'm still doing a quarter cup plus another quarter cup, so I'm doubling it, so it's gonna be a lot sweeter. The sweetness level is up to you on this. I'm adding vanilla stevia on top of that because I just think it doesn't have much flavor otherwise. A regular angel food cake has tons of sugar in it. It is just sugar, egg whites, and cake flour. Allulose isn't as sweet as regular sugar either. So zero out your scale again. You're gonna add most of the stuff to this. That's what they did in their videos. They added everything to the whites, and then at the end they added their extra ingredients that they were adding. This is all I have left in my 20-pound box of allulose. I ordered again, $160, because I go through it so fast. 80 grams. I found that each tablespoon was about 10 grams. 10 grams times 8 tablespoons for a half cup. 80 grams. There's that. And then they had a half a teaspoon of salt in, I think, their whole batch. So I'm only doing a quarter of a teaspoon in this. And I don't have the Redmond's real salt. I just have Himalayan pink sea salt. I don't know if that matters that much. And then I tried it with a quarter teaspoon of cream of tartar and I didn't get the best results. It might have been something else I did though. So I'm keeping it at a half teaspoon though, which is what they used in their whole batch. So then you just whip that for 5 minutes. But while that's whipping, you can get the rest of your ingredients, but I'm gonna explain them real quick. There's only 3, which are my usual 3 flour mixtures. What I normally do, I don't usually measure out like when I'm doing testing. I measure right into my sifter. So 1 tablespoon is only 7 grams of coconut flour. There you go, 7 grams. It's only 1 scoop of protein powder, so zero this out. 1 scoop is supposed to be 29 grams, but if you don't pack it up really good, you might get 28, or you could overpack it and get 30. So 1 packed scoop. It was 29 that time. And then just a half teaspoon of xanthan gum. This doesn't take long to come together either, so I probably should have gotten this done before. Preheating oven to 325. Those are our dry ingredients. This is what I'm using to make our little angel food cakes, which I thought would be nice to have individuals. And I did freeze some. I'm gonna take some out and see how they defrost. But I think they're gonna be easily frozen because I have angel food cake in my work freezer right now. They come in frozen. You just pull them out and defrost them and top them with whatever, and it works great. I think doing it individuals is a better option here, and they look cute. They look like those little angel food cups that you can buy at the store and fill with like fruit and whipped cream. It's perfect. So I'm gonna give these a little spray, and then we're gonna get these whipping, and then the only other ingredients are vanilla extract and vanilla stevia. Start low. After the first initial, I always give it a scrape down because we're not doing the big batch that they're doing. Theirs comes up to like the top of their mixer. This isn't going to come up that high, so you want to get all that egg white protein that you can down into your bowl. Otherwise, it's not all in there. Apparently today is train day. Sorry. Well, we're going to be whipping this for 5 minutes. Let's give it another scrape down. You can see there's some egg white powder up on top here. I want to make sure it's all in there. When it's here, I like to add my vanilla and my stevia. This doesn't cause any kind of deflation or anything in it. It shouldn't, it's just egg whites. So you add that to egg whites all the time. Same thing, the stevia doesn't seem to have any adverse reactions to it. I did a half a teaspoon last time. If you have just regular stevia, add a little bit more vanilla. This is completely up to you. Like if you make it and it's too sweet for you, just cut down the liquid stevia if you like. So just mix that in, and then we're gonna mix all the dry ingredients at once, get into a piping bag, pipe it, and get it into the oven. Scrape down a little bit because there's vanilla extract up top. You want this a little bit stiffer still, and if after you add the vanilla, you can still whip it more too if it's not whipped enough. You want it at very stiff peaks. So probably even go more than that. You can see as it's whipping that you see all the lines in it. That's when you know you're getting real thick. You know, I didn't even do any research. I wonder if you can over whip powdered egg whites like you can regular. See how it's really stiff peaks now? That's what you want. So we're gonna add in all our dry ingredients at once and give it a whip in here. I did try doing the traditional method of making an angel food cake where you pour only like a third of the ingredients in at a time and like gently fold. But we lost way too much air doing that because of the coconut flour just deflating the egg whites. So I found the best way was to just add it all at once, whip it up really good, give it a stir when it comes off, and get it into the baking dish. You can also make this in, I was making it in an 8-inch springform pan. Just make sure you grease it and line the bottom with parchment paper before you do that. Do have to grease this because there's literally no fat in here. I think for the whole batch, 1 gram of fat for the whole batch. So all at once, whip it real good. Start low, but then go. Scrape it down once. One more whip. I need room, so move it over here. Pretty like gloopy still. That's what you want. You don't want it to get too deflated. So I use a cup trick for this because when it's really liquidy, it's hard to do it in your hand. So fill up your piping bag as much as you can. You may have to do a second fill. But you want to fill these up pretty much all the way. So you go around a circle, even pressure, all the way around. It also depends on how deflated your stuff gets, how much batter you're going to put in each one. Go in for the rest. Get in there. It wasn't opened enough. And that extra allulose really makes for a soft angel food cake. So I was debating on not making it that soft, but why not have it softer than drier? Because like a regular angel food cake is kind of dry until you put a bunch of sweet berries on top, right? So why not have it nice and soft and you can just eat it as it is. It doesn't even need to be enhanced with anything really. We are going to add some, of course, because I'm a little bit extra like that. Gotta make it pretty. I was just snacking on it by itself yesterday. And like, you don't feel guilty about it because it's like literally no ingredients. And it tastes delicious. That's it. These are going into the oven for 20 to 22 minutes, and we'll be back when they come out of the oven. I am going to turn halfway through. Here are our delicious angel food cake. They're so fluffy. Gotta let these cool completely. They will sink a little bit, just like regular angel food cake. But then we'll pop them out and we'll give them a try once they're cooled. Super easy. Okay, time to pop these guys out. If you greased them enough, they should come right out. I'll show you right now before we even decorate them or anything. They are like chewy and fluffy. They don't have, I watched some of her videos, the choky feeling. When you eat it, you squish it and it like just squishes. It disintegrates in your mouth just like regular angel food cake. It's like a cross between a marshmallow and angel food cake. It is super delicious. We're gonna make some toppings for this though. We can't just eat it plain. Well, I've been eating it plain a lot, but it is gonna be really good with, I think I'm gonna do some sweetened raspberry whipped cream for the top. It's gonna be good. It's yummy. So cute. Snack on this one. I'm gonna use my favorite tool. This will be linked below, my immersion blender. Love this thing. Makes it so easy to make whipped cream. Gotta get my ingredients. I'm gonna measure this for you, just in case you wanna make this exact same thing. I'm gonna do 8 ounces of whipped cream, or heavy whipping cream, just because we have a lot of these now, so I'm sure my boyfriend will enjoy this. He loves this kind of dessert, light, not too sweet. And I think because I'm gonna use my raspberry jam that I made for my thumbprint cookies, I don't think we're gonna need to stabilize this whipped cream because this is pretty gelatinized from cooking it down so much with the allulose. But I could be wrong. I'll update if that's not the case and it gets really weepy and gross after a couple of hours. We'll start with a heaping tablespoon of raspberry jam in there and we'll whip it up, and I'll see if we need any more sweetener. If anything, I'll use a little bit of liquid stevia to sweeten it. Make sure this isn't on high. Oh, it was. Put it down to a little bit under half. Gotta change the battery on my front camera. To be continued. Knew I should have changed it when I changed my SD card, but I didn't. Back to the whipped cream. It's not quite done yet, but I want to taste it for the raspberry and sweetness before we get it to the stiff peaks we want. Definitely use more raspberry. Right now it is not sweet enough, but I'll try it again after I add this. Let's try that. That's good. Use a little bit more though. 2.5 tablespoons. I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla stevia. You can also add just regular stevia too if you want. I just did 10 drops. It looks really pretty. Oh, that is good. Put a dollop right on top. A tiny bit of raspberry jam. That looks delicious. Be pretty if you piped it on, but I was feeling lazy. I have not tried this anyway, but just plain, so this is totally new for me too. This raspberry jam, I cannot wait to try peanut butter and jelly sandwich on some of the protein sparing bread I've been testing. It's gonna be so good. Maybe that's what's for dinner tonight. Ooh, or grilled cheese. I'm gonna try this. It's so soft. of that whipped cream on there. It looks so good. Wow. That is insanely light and fluffy and delicious. With the tartness from the raspberry, it is so good. I was thinking if I had like lemons, I'd probably zest some lemon zest into the whipped cream also, or just right over top. It would look and taste really good. It is just so soft. That is a delicious angel food cake. It is amazing. I can't wait for strawberry season to come around again. And I always did biscuits because I didn't really like angel food cake that much because it was always kind of just too dry and just really sugary for me. But this isn't dry at all, and you can adjust the sweetness to whatever you want. So it is just like a great light dessert. And I know it's not angel food cake season, but you guys were asking for it, so I decided to try it, and I'm pretty glad I did because this is really good. Wow. Okay, so that was the angel food cake video. I haven't made that recipe in a while. I did make it when I had my brick and mortar bakery, and it wasn't a huge seller. I don't know why. But I served it with some strawberry jam on the side and I think some stabilized whipped cream. It's definitely an awesome like springtime, summertime dessert to make for yourself to take over people's houses. It's a very simple recipe that you can have on hand. It does freeze well and defrost super easily too. So just have that in your freezer and just pull one out. It defrosts super fast because my egg white bread also defrosts super quick. I remember I thought I said it in the video, but I remember I tried using like a plant-based protein powder for this recipe and it does work. I used the plant-based, I'll have to look it up. I'll put up a picture of what protein powder I used. It did work. I just don't like the flavor of the protein powder. And the nice thing about the unflavored whey is it doesn't really have any flavor to it. I feel like the plant-based proteins, you can taste a weird taste in it. I don't know, I don't prefer it. Other than that, the bulk supplements now does not whip up to stiff peaks because they have put sunflower lecithin in it. So now I use Judy's because I used to use Now brand and now that has sunflower lecithin also. Judy's is the next best price. If you don't need to use a lot of egg white protein for things, you can just get a small bag of It's Just. That also works. I mentioned in a lot of my videos, I love that immersion blender and it's no longer available on Amazon. So I was really bummed and I got a new one, but I don't like it as much. So I haven't put it, I don't think I've linked it in any of my other videos. And then I mentioned the egg white protein bread a lot in this video and I was in the midst of experimenting with it and everything. And it is really good for peanut butter and jellies. I actually just had my first peanut butter and fluff sandwich. I bought marshmallow fluff from Chalk Zero and that was really good on my bread. So my bread is still a staple in my house most of the time. I usually have a loaf in the freezer where I can take out a couple slices at a time. Next cake is the only sponge cake I'm gonna go over on this video. I do have a chocolate Swiss roll sponge cake and a pumpkin Swiss roll cake that are really delicious recipes. This is a full 9x13 separated egg sponge kind of thing. I think it's been a long time since I watched this video. This video was posted on July 16th, 2022. It was inspired by going strawberry picking for the season and it has just shy of 11,000 views. So let's get into the keto vanilla sponge cake with strawberries and whipped cream. Hey guys, coming at you today with a delicious, light and airy vanilla sponge cake. And because it's summertime, we're gonna layer it with some delicious fresh whipped cream and strawberries. So let's get started. Welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia and I'm a pastry chef with a severe sweet tooth. So I'm here to bring you the best keto desserts possible. So if you enjoy these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hitting the bell icon, giving the video a thumbs up, sharing with all your friends. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday. Today, a delicious, light and airy vanilla sponge cake recipe. Now, I figured this out at the bakery and I made big sheet cake with fresh strawberries and whipped cream, and it was delicious. And I just had to bring you guys the recipe. Now, of course, it is different, obviously, from doing it at the bakery and doing it at home. So I had to figure it out at home and kind of modify it a little bit. And I made it a little bit differently when I tested it, and I'm going to make it differently today. So there are a lot of different ways you can make it. The best way I found was to do it in like a thin layer, because typically a sponge cake is a little bit drier of a consistency. So if you do it really thick, you have to cook it longer and it gets even more dry. So I like doing it in thin sheets. And of course, most people don't have two of the same sheet pan. I mean, if you do, that's great. Use your big sheet pans that you have, that if you have two of them. I have two that are very similar, so we're going to use those today. I also did this in a 9x13 and it did work. I'll put the instructions in my blog, the different ways you can make this cake. You can also do it in a tube cake pan, which I actually do not own that either. So I'll be having all that in the blog post if you want to make it in different ways. But today I'm showing you how to do it in like thin sponge cake layers that we can stack and layer with the whipped cream and strawberries. And before I forget, I'm going to preheat my oven to 325. So now that that's done, this recipe is basically a separated egg sponge recipe. So we're going to need 8 eggs separated. I kind of took an original recipe from my pastry book and converted it using my vanilla cake recipe. So it's quite a lot of batter, because my original cake recipe was for 2 8-inch rounds that were like not super thick layers, and I wanted like bigger layers and able to do it in a sponge cake layer. So this is a lot of batter, but I already have all my dry ingredients here. I'm going to list everything up on the screen for you. The biggest thing with my dry ingredients is at the bakery, I used vanilla whey protein isolate from PodoPure, and it has 0 carbs in it. I think it made it a little bit fluffier than the unflavored whey protein. At home, I didn't have any of the vanilla whey protein, so I used unflavored. So I'm showing you the recipe with unflavored whey protein, because you got to add a little bit extra sweetness and a little bit more vanilla to make up for the lack of vanilla and sweetness. I do suggest PodoPure whey protein. I do have Perfect Keto's vanilla whey protein, but it's 4 carbs per scoop. And because we're adding strawberries and whipped cream to this, it's already a little bit higher in carbs. So adding that whey protein to this would up the carbs even more. But because we're doing sheet trays, we can cut this into a lot of slices. So, and it kind of is up to you how big a slices you want. So that'll determine your carb count also on this. The last one I did, I cut into 24, and I believe it was 4 net carbs per slice. So besides the protein powder I used, the only other thing that I would suggest using is a powdered sweetener. The original recipe called for granular, but because our sweeteners don't dissolve like regular sweeteners, I use powdered, because we're not whipping our sweetener with butter or eggs or anything like that to give it like some time to dissolve and kind of work out of the recipe. That's my trick with a lot of my baked goods, is just whipping the crap out of our sweetener so that it's less grainy in our baked goods and you get less of the cooling effect from erythritol when you beat the crap out of it. So I'm using powdered sweetener in here. And because we're using oil today, I did add some salt to this recipe because there is no salt for salted butter. Other than that, the usual dry ingredients. I'm going to give all this stuff a mix in here. We have some leavening agents, some coconut flour, all that jazz. Just got to give it a good whisk. You don't want all the xanthan gum in one place. Then we're going to get on to separating some eggs. That's good enough. And the recipe I follow is to make a well in the middle. And this is, like I said, I kind of converted my Lancaster sour milk cake, which is like a vanilla cake using buttermilk. So I used kind of the measurements from there, but the cake recipe I followed had water and oil. So I did the measurements for that. And then 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. And like I said, we were using unflavored whey protein in here. I did a tablespoon of liquid stevia, and I just happen to have vanilla stevia, so I used that. So that's going into our dry ingredients. And I'm gonna grab a little bowl to put our whites into in case we do break a yolk, we don't waste all of our egg whites. So we need 8 eggs separated for this recipe. So I do it into a little bowl. Oh, see, the egg yolk broke. You put it right into our wet ingredients and put your white into a separate bowl. I sometimes forget to do that, and then I'm like, oh, thank God my yolk didn't break. A couple different ways to do this, obviously, if you have one of the little sucker things, but if you break the yolk when you crack open the egg into the bowl, you're kind of screwed. So this way, if you do break the yolk, it's still in the shell. You can kind of catch it. You want your bowl to be very clean, the one that you're using to whip up your egg whites. If you have another stand mixer bowl, use that, and you can use the beater from the stand mixer to whip up your egg white. The best is a metal or glass bowl because plastic tends to hold oils. You can clean the inside of your plastic bowl with a little bit of lemon juice or vinegar to neutralize the oils in your bowls. But you need a very clean bowl to whip up your egg white. Otherwise, they might not whip to stiff peaks. Okay, 8 eggs separated. The last thing before we get all these eggs going is we gotta prep our pans, because once the batter's done, we want it to get right into the pans. So, I'm just doing a parchment paper square on both of these. I'm gonna do a little spray on the bottom just to stick the parchment down. So I haven't done it in these pans at home yet, so this is gonna be kind of a test for me too. At work, it didn't take very long to cook, so I'm just going to keep a really close eye on it. I guess I can eyeball the batter, but I always like weighing, which is why I like weighing out all my ingredients. And then in my recipe app I have, it tells you the total amount of grams a recipe is. So you can like kind of figure out how much, if you're splitting a cake batter into 2 pans, you can figure out how much it's supposed to weigh. I actually found a mixer, a hand mixer that I really like. I'm gonna find it on Amazon and link it for you. It's one that starts off slow and is powerful enough to do the job I need done. This one, when I beat anything that has powdered sugar in it, the one speed on this, the first speed is insane. Everybody asks me about some kitchen tools. I have most of my stuff linked below that I use. This is not because I don't like it, but I'll link the one I found that I use at work now. The only other ingredient is a ½ teaspoon of cream of tartar, which helps our egg whites whip up. And we just put this in when it starts getting frothy. You want them to stick straight up, so they're a little bit floppy still. Another like 30 seconds maybe. That's what you want. Straight up. Now I'll get all our dry plus wet onto our mixer. We're gonna beat the crap out of this until there's no lumps left, scraping down a couple of times. Start slow though. I also found the batter is a lot stiffer with the unflavored whey protein. I think that's why it makes it a little bit drier of a cake too. The unflavored has more gums or something in it that makes it thicker and drier. I think we're good. Give them the mix all the way down to the bottom. Make sure it's all good. Okay, so you start with 1/4 of your egg whites. You mix those in first. You do folding. So you go from the bottom, you cut in, up top. Bottom, up, top. Made this cake in school in a bowl about this big. And we took our hand and mixed like this. That killed the arms. Oh my lord. That day sucked. You don't have to be too careful with the first 1/4 of it because you're trying just to lighten up the batter. This is similar to my jelly roll, my Yule log, my pumpkin roll recipe. Only we're not whipping the egg yolks also. This is a high fat one. The sponge cakes that you use to roll a jelly roll doesn't have much fat in it, just from the eggs. So now half of it goes in. Fold that a little bit more gently than the first. You mix until there are no white streaks left. You can also do this in 2 9-inch rounds. That's the only thing I haven't really cooked it in though, so I'm not sure on the timing of it. I'll show you what to look for when it's done, so you know. Make sure you're getting all the way down to the bottom. Tend to miss that down there. You end up with lighter batter on top and heavier on bottom. Okay. I did not look up the weights, so we're gonna have to just eyeball our pans of sponge cake. And one is a little bit smaller than the other two, so I'm gonna put a little bit extra in this pan. We are just gonna have to trim some of the edge on it to stack it. I will figure out the weight measurements for anybody that does want to weigh out their 2 layers. It'll be in the blog post. Now, handy dandy offset. You can also use the little guy, but I got a bigger one, so I'm going to use him. Just gently push it into the corners. Try not to deflate it too much. Try to get it as even as possible. I think this one had way more batter than that. That's why it's always good just to weigh it out. You don't want to mess with this too much because all the air will deflate out of it. We're going to put, since we got 2 cakes, I'm going to put this one on the bottom because it's thicker. And my heating element's at the bottom of the oven. It'll cook at a higher temp technically because it's closer to the element. So hopefully they'll be done at the same time. I'm going to put these in. I'm going to start with 10 and I'm going to turn them and see how much longer we need. But I'll report back how long it takes. I'll show you what they look like when they are all done. Okay, I pulled the one out with less batter. It was only in 19 minutes. You want it to spring back to the touch. That's when you know it's done. The 9x13 will be super golden brown on top and it takes about 50 minutes. Same thing if you put it in a tube pan, it's going to take about 50 to 55 minutes also. So a 9-inch round, 2 9-inch rounds will probably take between the 20 and 55 minutes. So I'd say maybe 35 minutes or so. But just keep an eye on it. It's probably going to be nice and golden brown. But you just want to make sure it springs back when you touch it. If it sinks in at all, that means it's not done yet. So I have 30 seconds on my other one. So that was 21 minutes. And that's why I suggest weighing out your batter. I think it's even going to need another minute. But these are going to have to just set aside to cool before we fill them, obviously. So we'll be back in a little bit when they're completely cool. And we can flip them out and we can fill them and frost them. Cake 2. Springing back. Okay, it's time to fill our sponge cake. And I just realized the problem I came across is I didn't really have a platter to put this big cake on because at work I just do it on my big cutting board and then I slice it and portion it and sell it. So one thing you got to make sure is whatever pans you use, you have a platter that is big enough to accommodate your sponge cakes. So I had to rustle around the kitchen a little bit and try and figure something out. I do have one cutting board that is similar to size. This is going to have to do, you just want to loosen it up from the sides. And then make sure it's semi-unstuck. Oh, don't break it. And then the easiest way, hopefully, this works. There we go. Nice airy sponge cake. Now the thing with sponge cakes a lot of times is they can be dry. But I'm going to show you what we always did in school was make like a simple syrup to soak into our sponge cake. But today, since we're doing strawberries, we're going to make a little strawberry syrup and we're going to use the liquid to soak and then the cooked strawberries to like decorate the top of it. So we're going to set this aside. We got to get going on our strawberries. Now, I always say you should really weigh out the strawberries. It's kind of really hard to figure out how much you're putting in your carb manager. It says like a cup of sliced, but you can pack the hell out of it or you can keep it super loose. So what is a cup of sliced strawberries? So the best way to get the most accurate carb count is to weigh your strawberries out. So I'm going to allot 12 ounces for the middle layer and then 4 ounces to make a syrup out of it. We're going to slice 12 ounces of strawberries. Use a cutting board if you're not comfortable doing that. I remember my grandma and my mom all cutting apples this way as a kid. Learn from the best. Flinging strawberries. I wish I had more of my fresh picked strawberries. The problem with fresh picked is that you gotta use them so darn fast. So ripe and delicious. I used all 12 pounds within like a couple of days. You can also just do a strawberry jam in between the layers. No whipped cream. That's a traditional filling for sponge cake, is just jam. And this cake is always better done the day ahead too, because all the stuff kind of soaks in to the layers. I'm gonna do 4 ounces of strawberries in here. There you go. 4 ounces. You can do whatever or however much you want, or use whatever fillings or berries, whatever. So my normal jam recipe is, I believe, 8 ounces of berries, 3/4 of a cup of allulose, which is 120. I'm going to do 60 grams. So 1/4 plus half. There you go, 60 grams. And then I'm going to do the same amount of water. And you can kind of eyeball it. And this is all depending on how sweet your strawberries are too. You can always add a little bit more allulose, or you can add a little bit of liquid stevia, whatever you'd like. The only thing is the monk fruit erythritol, or just straight erythritol, might crystallize when it gets cold. I do have an extra enormous lemon from the lemon bar video, so I am going to juice a little bit of lemon into our strawberries here. It just brightens up the flavor a little bit. I only cut off like the end part. You're just going to want to cook this down until the strawberries are a little bit mushy and the juice is kind of red. The only other thing we can get ready right now while that's going is the gelatin for our whipped cream. I'm doing a whole quart of whipped cream. You may not need it all, but I hate having to remake more of something. And I did that at the bakery a couple of times, and it's just annoying. It just wastes friggin' time. So I'm going to do a whole quart of whipped cream, and if you have some left over, you can always use it for something else. Put some extra on each slice of cake when they get served, whatever you'd like. So I'm going to do 3 tablespoons of cold water to 3 teaspoons of gelatin. And yes, 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon, but I don't want to use my tablespoon measure to put gelatin in because now it's wet. Plus, it's easier to sprinkle a teaspoon at a time than a big tablespoon across your water. You want it very like lightly across your water. If you do too big a chunk, sometimes it won't bloom. So it's easier to do a teaspoon at a time. This is gonna make a really thick whipped cream. It's kind of what you want for this. It's not gonna be like jelly-like, but it's gonna be more stable than my other whipped creams. Just because you know it might be outside, hot outside, you don't want it melting all over the place. So gelatin, we're gonna need some vanilla extract. You can use any extract you want. Same thing goes with the sponge cake. You can use an almond extract, you can use a strawberry extract. You can use whatever you want extract-wise for these cakes and whipped creams and stuff like that. It's all up to you. I'm just giving you the base recipe and have fun with it. While we're waiting on this, I'm gonna weigh out 120 grams of powdered sweetener. This, of course, is up to you on sweetness level because everybody's taste buds on keto are different. I'm more on the sweeter side of things, so whenever you see like a whipped cream recipe that has an amount of sweetness in it, you can always pick your own sweetness. Make it how you like it. I save my protein scoops and use them in all of my bags of stuff. It works really well. Strawberries to start here. I'm trying to mash them up a little bit. If jelly is happening too fast, like if it's getting too thick on you, you can add more water to it. 120 grams is about a cup of powdered sugar. Okay, that's all ready to go. I think our strawberries are just about there too. Might need a little bit more liquid in there though. I'm gonna add more allulose and water to this. Just make more sauce to soak our sponge cake in. Basically, you're just making a simple syrup. We used to do this a lot in pastry school. We would make different flavored ones, and then we'd a lot of times flavor it with a liqueur like Cointreau or triple sec, and make like an orange flavored simple syrup to soak our cakes in. There's a lot of traditional cakes that are very like spongy and dry, and you need the simple syrup to moisten them up a little bit. Okay, our sugar's all dissolved in there, so I'm gonna put this on again low. I took out most of the liquid to soak our cake. I'm gonna get going on the stable whipped cream. So we're gonna whip this to soft peaks. I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. You can also do strawberry if you want. We're not quite at soft peaks, but once you're almost there, you can pop your gelatin into the microwave. I do 50% power and keep an eye on it, like 10-second intervals until it's completely all melted. Pop this back on to get to soft peaks. It's almost melted. It took 45 so far. Do another 15. It should be good. I got a big spoon to scoop out a scoop of whipped cream into the gelatin to temper it. I'm going to give it another 5 seconds. I want to make sure it's nice and hot. Otherwise, when you put the whipped cream in, it's going to solidify right away. And you don't want that to happen because then it'll just be a chunk of gelatin. So you want to make sure it's nice and hot. So once I put this in, I'm going to get this going again. Whisk it up. And pour it back into your whipped cream. Speed it up. You should have nice, thick whipped cream that is not going to fall on you. Always, if you're not sure how much sweetener, start slow and less, and then taste as you go. For me, that's perfect. Let's start assembling. Still got our sauce simmering away back here. I'm going to actually turn it off and let it cool. Hopefully thicken up a little bit. See if our cake will fit here. Just fits. So we're going to start with putting some syrup on it. You want to soak it all. Use about half your syrup, and that way you have half for the top. Put on a thin layer of whipped cream, because you're going to put another one on after you do the strawberries. Go all the way to the edge. Once you got that first layer down, layer on your strawberries. We're going to cut this into more pieces, I think. The other one was 24. We're going to need a few more strawberries. We got another 4 ounces. Looks good. We do want some whipped cream to decorate. I'll show you a neat trick with the whipped cream too. You can actually portion out our slices with our decoration. We do at bakeries a lot and restaurants. We use the decoration on top so that people know where to cut it, because we're not always the people cutting them. And make sure you get all the way to the edge. Here we go. Probably gonna have to cut some of this too. So, about right here. Scraps to snack on. So we're just kind of using this as a guide. It's pretty much the same length. So it was just that little bit we had to cut off. It stuck to the parchment. So we gotta get that off. That. Then take it and line it up. Line it up with that side. That looks good. Soak the whole top in the strawberry liquid, whatever's left. And if you do need more, you got some more in the pot still. Gonna be good on top. Now to decorate. Put it in there. There we go. So I have a big tip on my bag, big hole, fill it up with whipped cream. I think we can do, and I think we're gonna need more whipped cream. See, figures. Now you can, obviously, frost this whole thing with whipped cream if you want. But I'm just doing a decoration on top. Now, I think we can get 30 out of this. Try to find the middle, which is like right here. Do 3. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's a little poopy. So you can always take it off and redo. It even might be too big of a slice. Let's see, what else can we do? 6. Hate doing odd numbers. Do 1. You do 8 by 5. 8 by 5. So that's how you can portion this out really easily. Okay, well, I'm going to make some more whipped cream, finish this up, and then we're going to slice into it. It's not as pretty as I would have liked it to be, but it is what it is. This should be pretty cool. Yeah, it's just room temperature now. So you can drip this over your whipped cream. You can also just wait until you serve it too, and then a little dollop of sauce on everybody's cake. But I'm gonna go figure out the carbs on this real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay, I took a little breather, figured out the macros on this, and even with all the extra stuff we put in it, doing it into 40 made it only 2 net carbs. So you can literally douse this in more strawberries and you'd still be at a decent carb count. So I made some more strawberry compote with another 4 ounces. Even with adding an extra 4 ounces of strawberries to these, it was still only 2 net carbs. You can also cut the cake recipe in half, and then that way you can do 1 sheet, cut it in half, and make it into 2 layers. So you can do a half size of this. There we go. Now we can slice into it and give it a taste test. There we go. Strawberry sponge cake. And I forgot a fork. That is an impressive dessert for 4th of July or Labor Day or graduation or birthday. Light, airy, vanilla-y, strawberry. Looks and taste delicious. It'll be even better tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Leave me a comment below what your favorite summer treats are. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. If you'd like to support the channel and thank me for my recipes, I did put a thank you button underneath my YouTube videos. YouTube does take a percentage of that though, so I also put in a buy me a coffee link in my description box. If you would like to buy me a coffee, you can support the channel that way. I'd really appreciate it. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. Wow, that was a doozy of a video. So that was the first cake recipe that I figured out since being at my brick and mortar bakery, and it proved to be very difficult to juggle being at the bakery and trying to get videos out. So I ended up starting to shoot at the bakery in kind of a less complicated way, but it made it difficult to convert and make recipes at home when I wasn't experimenting with the recipes at home as much. I was doing it at the bakery while I was there, every day. It's weird that I mentioned that the unflavored whey protein made it a thicker batter than the vanilla whey protein, because I know vanilla whey protein has usually gums in it and the unflavored doesn't usually have gums in it, so I'm wondering why that is that it made it thicker. I have found that the flavored whey proteins definitely give a softer texture to cakes. I mentioned the simple syrup trick in there, and that is one that you can use to save any of your keto cakes if you don't specifically make my recipe, which is not dry. Simple syrups is something we used all the time in pastry school. All the classic cakes that were in our pastry book had a simple syrup on them to moisten them up. Now on to my newest and most used cake recipes. I've used these to make tons of different kinds of cakes, my chocolate cake and my vanilla cake recipe. I think I technically put out my vanilla cupcake recipe first, but I did it in a short, and it was the first short I ever made, and it was really bad. So I actually redid the video and made a new one a year later. So first up is December 17th, 2022 is my chocolate cake recipe. I made it into cupcakes, and I made a Black Forest chocolate cupcake. This can be used to make tons of different flavored cakes. This has 22,000 views, and I shot this way in advance. I pre-shot a bunch of videos at the bakery while I was 6-7 months pregnant so that I could have content to put out, hopefully after I had the baby, but he didn't come till almost 10 days later, so I was just editing while I was, stuck at home, not working. So let's get to watching the keto chocolate cake recipe. Hey guys, coming at you today with the delicious chocolate cupcake recipe, but some of you asked, so we are making it into keto black forest cupcakes, perfect for Christmas dessert. So let's get started. First off with black forest, we gotta talk cherries. This is the only thing I could find in the frozen section, sweet dark cherries, but I know there's sour cherries out there and we're going to be sweetening them anyways. So if you can find the sour ones, they're less carbs. We're going to be using 2 portions of this, so 24 for 5 ounces. So we're going to actually be using less than that. We're only going to be using 8 ounces. So whatever you end up using is what your carb count's going to be. With these, doing only 8 ounces, they're 3 to 4 each, depending on how many you get out of the cake batter. But we are sweetening this with allulose and making a cherry filling for our cupcakes. We need 8 ounces cherries. Basically, you're going to be able to put like 2 cherries in each cupcake. So you can count out if you want. 48, so 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. There's an extra ounce, not even. A couple extra grams if you want to count it. Now, basically when I make jam, I do 8 ounces of fruit and 3/4 of a cup of allulose. Add a tiny bit of water to it. Not a lot, because these are frozen, so. But you do want a nice amount of juice to go into your cupcakes too. So we're gonna cook this until it is a thick syrup. Show you when I take it off. So let that stew down for a little bit while we make our cupcakes. So this is a version of my red velvet cupcakes. We're just adding a little bit extra cocoa powder and obviously no red food dye. So 12 ounces of oil. You can also do butter instead. Just make sure it's really soft. I have 4 eggs warming in some warm water. Need 240 grams of a 1-to-1 sweetener. I'm using monk fruit erythritol, 240 grams. And whip that up. Add in our 4 eggs. Alternate buttermilk, dry ingredients. Instead of the water and dye, we just put in a little bit extra buttermilk. Now for the dry ingredients, I'm going to have everything up on the screen for you. My usual mix, I'm using chocolate whey protein. If you don't use that, use regular. Take out a couple tablespoons and add in some extra cocoa powder. And you might need to add a little bit more sweetness to your batter because there is extra sweetness added to your flavored protein powders. Need 10 ounces of buttermilk. We're going to need 2 more teaspoons of this to go into our baking soda. Normally you'd add 2 teaspoons of vanilla to this. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of cherry. Again, this is not good in large quantities. Just use a tiny bit in there just to enhance the flavor a tiny bit. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then I'm going to put a tiny bit into here too, like a half teaspoon. It smells good. Then taste, if you use too much, it tastes like Robitussin. Robitussin. It's almost there. I'm going to add in our 4 eggs that are room temperature, hopefully. Ooh. I've been really bad lately with getting shells in here. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just worse coordination or what, but cracking into something else first. I'm gonna let this go for a minute and get our pan ready, and then we'll alternate the buttermilk and dry ingredients together. Okay, this is what it's looking like. Once it cools, it's gonna get a lot thicker. So I think I'm gonna take this off the heat and get it in the fridge to chill. Heat-proof container, guys. We got about a cup of juice and liquid. Okay, we need our pans. So we're gonna do 24. We're also gonna bake these at 350. I think we'll do red and green for Christmas. Okay, let's finish our batter. We didn't scrape down well, so make sure you get down in there. Scrape it all up. Get it all mixed in. I'm gonna mix in our baking soda. Okay, now time to scoop. I use the bigger set, the middle bigger set of scoops. And normally I get 30. I'm going to try to get just 24. I'm going to fill them up a little bit more. We don't have enough filling for 30 cupcakes. I figured out the macros for 24. Okay, maybe pretty good. We got a little bit of batter left. Maybe I could have gotten one more. Time to go in the oven. I don't usually do them in this oven here, so I think it's gonna be like 16 minutes. So 8 turn 8. I'm gonna give it 1 more minute. Firm up a tiny bit more. If they don't cook long enough, they'll sink in the middle. Okay, just pull them out. They gotta cool before we can fill them and top them with a whipped cream topping. Aren't these the prettiest keto cupcakes ever? They're so good. Now we got to punch a little hole in the middle. And keep the scraps and use them as cake balls. Put them in your freezer for when you do other filled cupcakes or what have you. They apparently sell a tool, but I don't have one. So I'm using a big tip. And then we need something to get it out with. There we go. You want like that big a hole. Okay, this cake is so moist and delicious. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like super soft. And this is just one way of doing it. You can just put the cherries on top also. They kind of make it like just drizzling off the sides kind of thing. I like having it inside. Oh, and these were a hit at my baby shower. There's only a couple left at the end. We had like 4 desserts. Time to fill them. Basically, I'm just trying to get 2 little cherries in each, and then I'm going to go through and fill them with all the liquid that I have left. Now we got to make the whipped cream topping. And I've shown this in multiple videos, so I'm not going to explain it, but you temper your gelatin in with the whipped cream. Otherwise, your whipped cream will be weepy within like 20 or 30 minutes. Okay, so I'm doing 2 cups of whipped cream here, 60 grams of powdered sweetener, a little bit of vanilla extract, and then I have 2 teaspoons of bloom gelatin. Okay, now into a piping bag fitted with whatever tip you want. Okay, so maybe 2 1/4 cups of whipped cream will do you. All depends on how much you put on each one. Final touch. Usually Black Forest cake has a bunch of chocolate shavings all over it. I'm just using Lily's dark chocolate. It's the only one I have that's like regular, pretty much. Then I'm using my microplane, but you can use a box grater too. And shaving. A bunch of chocolate shavings. Black Forest cupcakes. Time to try one. Hey, here's mine. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna cut it in half. Cherry center. Give it a try. Trying not to make a mess. Okay. Pretty delicious. Just this chocolate cupcake recipe is amazing. And I top it with so many different flavored buttercreams, and I make my caramel sauce and drizzle that on. Possibilities are endless with this chocolate cupcake recipe. It's so soft and moist. So good. My mom's favorite. It's my father-in-law's favorite. I have people come in to grab my chocolate caramel cupcakes. They're so good. So soft. Just with the buttercream frosting, they're 1 net carb. With the cherry and the whipped cream, they're 3 net carbs. So really not bad at all. So I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. If you do, let me know in the comments below. What is gracing your Christmas dessert table this year? Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'll be back with many more keto dessert recipes. Bye guys. So that was the chocolate cupcake recipe. And like I said at the end there, you can make it in a bunch of different pans. I have used it to make layer cakes, and even my son's birthday cake, I made it in 2 6-inch rounds, and I made it in a 9x13, and I cut it out into rounds to build his dinosaur cake. The whole thing is, it's just gonna change how long you bake it for. You don't want it to look wet in the middle anymore. You just want it to look dry and bounce back when you touch it. Totally forgot that the recipe that stemmed from this was because of the red velvet cake, which turned out awesome. And the baking soda vinegar trick works great on all the cakes. So I use that for every cake recipe now because it gives us such a nice dome. And I always had problems with our keto baked goods falling a lot after they bake, and that trick has kept that from happening on my cupcakes now. And it's really nice to have a nice big, domed cupcake for keto. That video was definitely a lot more chaotic being shot that way, and obviously you can tell it was only 13 minutes long because I didn't explain a lot in there. I always felt weird not talking to the camera and like just talking down at the phone that was in front of me, like shooting the footage, but it was the only way I could get stuff done. At the end, when I had the bakery, the person I was with literally just like left me every day to do another job. So I watched the bakery every day by myself. So I had to figure out a way to shoot, plus I was editing all day there too, and testing and selling, our baked goods. I also had to fill the case because she wasn't baking for the case. So I had 2 whole cases to fill with products. I never wanted it to look empty. Like I said, I did have those for my baby shower. I wrote that down first, and then I had mentioned it later that it was a big hit in my baby shower. You can tell I had rhinitis. I was always stuffy, and at that point I was getting to the point where I was getting out of breath. I probably shot that in the beginning of November, so I was at 34 weeks, probably 35 weeks. I was definitely very pregnant then. It is a delicious recipe, and I always use it. I've made I think the only one since then that I've used my chocolate cake for is the chocolate whiskey caramel cake, which was delicious. I did that for my whipped ganache recipe video. So over the next year, I was doing like shorter videos with my base recipes, like my stabilized whipped cream, my whipped ganache recipe, which is in a previous like cake recipe and stuff like that. So I was building up my base recipe videos. So I have tons of different options for all the cakes and frostings you may need, and it's all in my cake playlist. And we are on to the final video, my vanilla cake recipe. Now this one I have used to make so many different cakes. I have made a banana cake, basically like a hummingbird with pineapple and banana. I've made an apple cake. I've made a pumpkin cake. I've made carrot cake. So this recipe can be switched up and made into a plethora of other flavored cakes. And it all turns out so soft and moist and delicious. This is one I use for a bunch of different things. This is my third video. My first one, the Lancaster sour milk cake. I was very new to keto still. I think probably this recipe stemmed from figuring out that I could use less coconut and more whey when I did my zucchini bread recipe. So when that came out really good, I started experimenting with using less coconut. I did that short video, which was this recipe, but it was only in like 30 seconds. So I wanted to make a new video just showcasing the new vanilla cake recipe. This was September 23rd, 2023, and it has only 6,400 views. So let's get into my keto, high protein vanilla cake recipe, which is what I titled it. Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for joining me. My name's Alycia, and I'm a pastry chef and a business owner with a severe sweet tooth. And I'm here to teach you how to make the best keto desserts possible. So if you enjoy these recipes, please consider hitting the subscribe button down there, giving the video a thumbs up, sharing with your friends. It all helps my channel grow and to bring you new keto desserts every Saturday, or almost every Saturday. Today, we are making a delicious, soft, moist, nut-free, gluten-free, new and improved vanilla keto cupcake recipe that is only 1 net carb each. So let's get started. To start out this recipe, I did 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar with a So Delicious unsweetened coconut milk. You can use any alternative milk of your choice. Just know if you use something like heavy cream, it does have carbs in it more than a coconut milk would or an almond milk. And I am warming up 4 eggs in some warm water. Next we'll be getting 5 ounces of avocado oil into this bowl. I have done this recipe with avocado oil, coconut oil, and butter. It all works out exactly the same. To the avocado oil, we are going to be adding what I like to use is a granular monk fruit erythritol blend. There are cheaper brands on the market than Locanto, and I buy So Nourished granular erythritol monk fruit blend. But you can use any 1-for-1 erythritol blend for this recipe. We're going to be adding 180 grams. It's going to be about 2/3 and 1/4 cup. But sweetener's not that crucial to be exact on. It's the flour that you need to be exact. I changed the amount of sweetener in this. The sweetness level on this is up to you though. 180 is just where I landed when I was like kind of converting recipes and trying to figure things out. Because I never use like cup measurements in the bakery. I always just do it by weight measurements. So that's why it's 180 grams. Doesn't really equal a easy conversion to cups. So we're going to beat this up while we measure out our dry ingredients. If you're new to my videos, I also try to teach you the quickest, fastest, and best way to make the recipes to cut down on your time in the kitchen. And also to cut down on cooling effect, I whip the crap out of our sweeteners because they don't dissolve like regular sugar does. And you could use a powdered here probably. You need half the amount though. Powdered is so much more expensive, so I always use granular. You can powder your own, I just don't have the time to do that. You want to scrape down a few times to get all this sweetener that's up here. If you want to know all about keto sweeteners, I will link here in the iCards in the corner my sweetener video if you want to know what sweeteners you can use and why. I'm going to preheat my oven right now to 350. This is a gas oven, so my times might be different if you have an electric oven, but I am not doing convection, I'm doing conventional. While your sugar and oil are whipping, you can get your dry ingredients. I'm not going to do it while it's whipping because it's just too loud. I don't usually sift my protein powders because it's too fine and it takes forever. There's never any real lumps in it. 120 grams protein powder should be about a cup and a half, but I always weigh. So that was 87, so close. 1 cup should be around 80. All depends on how much you pack it down. So I had that much left. Protein powder is one of those things because it can compact a lot. 75 grams of coconut flour. This you definitely want to sift. It should be a half a cup and 2 tablespoons according to the back of the package. Yeah, it's all how if you scoop or if you don't scoop with the scooper and you scoop with something else and you put it in there. It was 50. It's supposed to be 60 for a half cup. So I always suggest having a scale. I have mine linked below. Not this one in particular. I'm not a huge fan of it. The one I have up in my home kitchen is the one I recommend. You saw there that I did 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda in a measuring cup. This is a trick. I found a recipe for red velvet cupcakes and they put vinegar in their baking soda at the end after everything was mixed, poured it into the cupcake batter, mixed it all up, and then portioned it and baked it, and it rose really beautifully. I don't know if this is necessary exactly, or if we can just put the 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda in there and then add vinegar at the end before we bake it. But I know this works and it works great, and we get nice fluffy keto vanilla cupcakes using this method. So that's what I'm sticking with. Once your sweetener and oil or butter or whatnot are super mixed, you can start adding your warm eggs to the mixture one at a time, scraping down. And then you're going to add your flavoring, dry ingredients, and then the vinegar and baking soda, and we're done. That is it for the dry ingredients. You always want to whisk those together so you don't get pockets of xanthan gum and baking powder. I rewarmed my eggs with some extra warm water. I'm going to actually be doing cake batter flavored because I want to do some confetti cupcakes for my vending show. But if you're just doing vanilla, obviously just do vanilla extract. Our oil and sweetener are pretty thick. They're not super grainy anymore. No matter what, they're going to be a little bit grainy. I feel like with the butter, you definitely can get it less grainy, but the oil definitely works too. This also works if you're going to do a dairy-free cupcake or a lactose-free cupcake, because my whey protein powder does not have any lactose in it, so this cupcake will be lactose-free. I don't think I mentioned it before. What I normally do is I put this on the scale, add my 2 teaspoons of vinegar, and then fill it up until I get 10 ounces. Or you can measure 1.25 cups. We're going to add 1 egg at a time to here. When they're warm, they're way more liquidy, which is nice because you don't have to scrape out your eggshell. When your eggs are warm, it gets nice and homogenized, doesn't get separated. One more scrape down, and then we're just going to alternate wet and dry ingredients together. As this sits, it will get thicker because of the coconut flour. One more mix. Then we gotta set up our cupcake molds. Now, because I'm doing these for my vendor shows, I'm using these guys. I showed you these in my keto buttercream frosting recipe. I'll link that up there for you. I'm not going to show you frosting today because I already have a video on it. But if you do these cups, I'll have them linked below. You get 18 cupcakes. If you just do regular cupcake molds, you're going to get 24 cupcakes. We do have to give these a little spray. I'll just do some without funfetti inside. So we do the baking soda in here. 2 teaspoons of vinegar. Mix it up. Pour it in. Mix it in really good, because I know if there's pockets of baking soda and vinegar, you end up getting big like poofs in one cupcake. So you definitely want to mix it really well. I'm going to do these 3 here with just normal batter. And then I'm going to get out my scale, because owning a business, you kind of want everything to be the same and to be accounted for. So I measure how much goes in each cupcake. So for the vanilla, it's 55. It's going to be a little bit more because I'm adding some sprinkles to it. One of these scoops is pretty close though. An extra 28. So still going to be about 55. If you want my sprinkle recipe, I'll link it here for you. As you can see, I pretty much did 55 still for all of them, and still the same amount. So these are going to go in the oven 10 minutes, turn them halfway through so that they bake evenly, in another 10 minutes, and they should be done. If you're doing them in cupcake liners, 9 turn 9 should do it. Perfect. Now unfortunately we have to wait for these to cool, and then we're going to try one of these guys. See if we can get these guys out of here. At the vendor show we just give them a fork. It's a lot less messy than trying to eat a cupcake. They aren't fully cooled yet either. So almost came out. That'll do. These are so soft. They are super light and airy. Big air pockets. So good. And they're even good without frosting.
I've snacked on them before. Not dry at all. My throat is dry though, so it feels like it's dry, but it's really super moist and delicious. It's just, it doesn't like, there's no crumbs, like it doesn't fall apart. It's just like a regular cupcake. So good. I could eat those all day long and not even think about a regular cupcake. So good. If you get 24 out of there, they're 1 net carb each for sure. I'll calculate it and see if 18, if it's still 1 net carb or not. My keto buttercream frosting is 0 carbs. So you put them together, still a whole one of these cupcakes with frosting is only 2 net carbs. You can't beat it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and me going back to my old style of video. I am going to try to do this more often. It just takes so much longer than doing it the other way I was doing it. But I feel like I had to get back to my roots of this channel, and I go back and watch my older videos and they're so much better and more entertaining. So let me know in the comments below if you prefer this way of shooting a video or if you don't mind the other way, but I know I need to up my game on my video making and editing because it's just very amateur the other way. I do love doing this style, it's just the fact that it takes a lot longer. And with a new baby, don't always have all this time. So if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out my Amazon links and the blog link to the full recipe in the description box below. Share this recipe with your friends and family or your Facebook or Instagram group if you like it. Thanks for subscribing, and as always, I'll be back with more keto dessert recipes. Bye, guys.
Okay, so that was my vanilla cake recipe, and it's one I use to make tons of other cakes. I didn't even mention the rhubarb upside down cake. I use that recipe to make that also, which is so delicious. You can use any fruit you want for it. The rhubarb you have to cook, but like if you do blueberries or something, you don't need to cook that. But apparently that was one of the first videos I shot my old way, but I still did not have my overhead shot, which I got a little contraption to hold my phone, which makes it much easier because in those kind of videos, the camera's right here in front of my face. So like, it's so hard to like see what I'm doing. That recipe is delicious and I use it for a lot of different recipes. Speaking of recipe conversions, I converted the chocolate cake recipe to the vanilla cake recipe, and it's a lot harder to do than you think. Like, usually I have problems making things that aren't chocolate because cocoa powder tends to dry things out. So when I went to making the vanilla recipe, I had to minus like fat and stuff like that to figure out the recipe, and with chocolate you need more sweetener, so I minused it to 180, which is kind of a random number. But like I said in the video, you can, you know, go up or down probably 48 grams and be fine. I am going to try to do some more testing on no sugar alcohols at all in my recipes and just using stevia, which I have actually minused. I always tell myself to write it down when I do my cake for Van because I don't do a lot of sugar alcohols in there and do more stevia, and my cake recipe still worked. So I know it's possible, I just don't know if it's possible to leave it out altogether. So I will probably be experimenting with that at some point soon. The other thing is the 1-for-1 with whey protein. I do have a dairy-free vanilla cake and a dairy-free carrot cake recipe, but you had to do a lot of conversions. Like I couldn't just swap out whey protein for something. I ended up working with beef protein isolate, which does work to replace the whey, but I had to up the coconut flour and I think minus the liquid and a bunch of other stuff. Like I tried doing a swap 1-for-1 and my cake was so wet it wouldn't cook. I don't think beef protein is like a flour substitute really. Like it didn't act like a flour in the batter. So I will still be looking for a 1-for-1 with whey protein. I did try leaving out the whey protein and doing bamboo fiber and coconut. I believe, in my pie crust experiment video, and that didn't work. So I know that taking out the whey and replacing it with that particular thing didn't work. And I know that swapping out whey protein for egg white protein powder works in some recipes. It did work in the pie crust recipe, but again, it's because you're adding as much liquid as you need to make a dough. If you go and take one of my recipes that has the egg, butter, and all that stuff in the recipe first, and then go and try to add dry ingredients, it might be too wet of a batter, because I feel like egg white protein doesn't absorb as much as whey protein does. And I've had some people tell me they've tried swapping out the whey for egg white protein in like my cream cheese Danish recipe, and that didn't work. So I think it works for like recipes where you have to add the liquid at the end to get the right consistency, and for like crispy cookies. The egg white protein makes my recipes drier. Like my cookies, my crust, it works, but it's kind of a dry texture instead of like a moist, you know, tender. That's the word I was looking for. A tender pie crust, you end up getting like a more dry, tough pie crust. So I will be still working on it to see if I can find a one-for-one swap, but as of right now, I don't have one. And I've been working on it for a while. Hopefully I'll be able to figure that out in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed this keto, low carb, high protein cake compilation video. Like I said, I have tons of cakes on my channel besides these ones. These were kind of the base recipes and ones that I have converted to other ones and stuff like that. So I hope you find something you'll like for your birthday or your friend's birthday or Mother's Day to make, so that you can enjoy your holidays just like everyone else can. Leave me a cake emoji if you made it this far into the video. Don't forget to check out my Amazon link to my shop page in the description box below. Plus I will link all the blog posts to these recipes in the description box below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, I'll be back with more delicious keto, low carb, high protein recipe videos. Bye guys, happy keto baking.